Welcome to Swapping Chaos, where two completely opposite families, Bernie Mac's no-nonsense crew and the wild Wilkersons, swap homes for a weekend. What could go wrong? Let's dive into it. Bernie Mac sits on his living room couch, looking straight into the camera, exasperated as usual. America, I don't know who came up with this family exchange program, but I promise you, they don't have kids like mine. Vanessa's out here thinking she's Beyonce, Jordan's softer than tissue paper, and Brianna? She cute, but she's got that buy me everything look in her eyes. And now I'm supposed to ship them off to some random family's house for a whole weekend? Lord, give me strength! Meanwhile, over at the Wilkerson house, Lois is reading the details of the same program to her family during breakfast. She's stern, determined, and completely unfazed by the chaos swirling around her as Reese tries to balance an egg on his forehead. Dewey quietly eats peanut butter out of the jar. And Hal sneaks bites of his breakfast like a kid afraid of getting caught. Lois, holding a printed flyer, announces, "This family exchange program is exactly what we need. It'll teach you boys some respect and discipline. Maybe you'll learn how normal families function." Reese perks up with a mischievous grin. "Wait, so we get to crash someone else's house and destroy their stuff? I'm in." Malcolm, in typical fashion, breaks the fourth wall, looking straight into the camera with a deadpan expression. Somehow, I know this is going to be a disaster. And not the good kind of disaster. The Wilkerson kind. Back at Bernie Mac's house, the day of the swap arrives, and Bernie's preparing for the arrival of his temporary guests. He's pacing the living room, muttering to himself about how kids these days don't understand boundaries. When the doorbell rings, Bernie swings it open to reveal Reese, Malcolm, and Dewey, all looking either smug or nervous. Bernie sizes them up and immediately lays down the law. "All right, listen up. In this house, there's no yelling, no running, and definitely no breaking stuff. You act up, and I will break you down. Got it?" Reese, clearly unimpressed, leans toward Malcolm and whispers, "I like him. I think he's bluffing." Malcolm shakes his head slightly and replies, "He's not bluffing." Over at the Wilkerson house, the Mac kids are less than thrilled about their temporary accommodations. The moment Vanessa steps inside, she's greeted by Lois, who's already holding a mop. "Oh no, sweetheart," Lois says firmly. "This is life, and while you're here, you're going to pull your weight. Grab a mop." Vanessa stares at her, incredulous. "Excuse me? I don't mop." Lois doesn't miss a beat, leaning in with a smirk that holds no warmth. "You do now." Back at Bernie's house, Dewey is immediately on his best behavior, charming Wanda with his polite manners. "Mrs. Mac, can I help you set the table?" he asks sweetly. Wanda, taken aback but delighted, responds, "Why, thank you, Dewey. It's so nice to have a kid who actually offers to help." But it doesn't take long for Dewey's true intentions to reveal themselves when Bernie catches him sneaking an extra slice of pie from the fridge. "Boy, I don't care how sweet you talk," Bernie says, glaring down at him. "Put the pie back before I put you in the pie." Malcolm, meanwhile, is trying his best to avoid trouble, but Bernie's no-nonsense attitude keeps him on edge. "Malcolm," Bernie says one evening as the boy hesitates over a full trash bag, "let me tell you something. You think too much. You analyzing this, you analyzing that. Boy, just take out the trash before I analyze you." Malcolm, glancing nervously at the camera, mutters, "How do I explain to him that trash duty violates my sense of individuality? Actually, never mind. He'd probably just tell me to stop talking." As the weekend progresses, both families find themselves on the brink of their patience. Lois is growing increasingly frustrated with Vanessa's refusal to do chores, and Bernie is convinced Reese and Dewey are planning to dismantle his entire house, piece by piece. The situation comes to a head at a neighborhood block party hosted by Bernie, where both families come together for a chaotic afternoon. Jordan, meanwhile, is cautiously optimistic about fitting in with Reese, but his enthusiasm wanes quickly when Reese suggests they build a zipline from the roof to the backyard. "Don't worry," Reese assures him. "It's totally safe. I tested it on a stuffed animal first." Jordan hesitates, eyeing the flimsy setup. "But the stuffed animal doesn't weigh as much as I do." Reese waves off his concerns. "That's what makes this more exciting." Predictably, the zipline collapses mid-ride, and Jordan lands in a pile of muddy leaves, groaning. "I knew I should have stayed inside," he mutters. Bernie and Hal bond briefly over barbecue, with Bernie critiquing Hal's fumbling technique with the tongs. "Man, you're gonna burn the ribs like that." "Let me show you how it's done," Bernie says, taking over. Hal laughs nervously. "Well, I always say if you can't stand the heat, let someone else do the grilling." Meanwhile, the kids are plotting their biggest prank yet, setting off fireworks disguised as decorations. Reese, of course, is the mastermind. "This is going to be epic. We light the fuse and boom, instant entertainment," he says with a grin. Malcolm shakes his head, clearly torn. "You know this is a terrible idea, right?" Reese waves him off, "Which is why it's the best idea." But the prank goes off prematurely, sending food flying, decorations burning, and everyone running for cover. Bernie storms in, furious, while Lois is already in the middle of a lecture. "Boys, What did I tell you about fire-related disasters? Lois shouts. Reese, trying to look innocent, shrugs. That they're fun? Bernie, shaking his head, mutters, America, I don't know how I got roped into this madness. In the aftermath, as both families work together to clean up the mess, Bernie and Lois share a moment of mutual understanding. I don't know how you do it, Lois admits. Your kids may be a handful, but at least they're not pyromaniacs. Bernie chuckles, and I don't know how you deal with 5 of them. One weekend with your boys, and I'm ready to retire. Later, Bernie reflects to the camera, his usual exasperation tinged with a hint of amusement. America, I learned something this weekend. No matter how crazy you think your family is, there's always someone crazier. And thank God that someone isn't me. Over at the Wilkerson house, Malcolm writes in his journal, reflecting on the experience. Bernie Mac might be tough, but somehow it works. Maybe my mom and Bernie should team up. Actually, no. That's too much power for one family. The final shot is a split screen of Bernie and Lois collapsing onto their respective couches, both sighing in exhaustion. I need a vacation, Bernie mutters. Never again, Lois echoes.